Welcome to the Spokesman Speaks, a podcast for farmers and ag professionals by the Iowa Farm Bureau, bringing you the news, experts, and educational insights that matter most. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to our September 29th edition of the Spokesman Speaks podcast. I'm Andrew Wheeler. Today we'll bring you an economic update from American Farm Bureau economist Faith Parum and meet the new chair of Iowa Farm Bureau's Young Farmer Advisory Committee, Michael McEnany of Story County. We all know that assessing the U.S. farm economy is complicated. To help us work through the weeds and better understand where things stand for Iowa's farmers today, Spokesman reporter Corey Munson recently sat down with American Farm Bureau economist Faith Parum.
You co-wrote a market intel article about farm income based on the USDA data that was released recently. Broadly speaking, kind of what were some of the findings that you uncovered there?
Yeah, so the USDA projects net farm income a few times a year, and this September revision is very interesting. So they're forecasting a record net farm income of $180 billion. But really, when you kind of dig down deep, the story is a little bit more mixed. So over $40 billion of that is coming from government assistance. That's from losses in the previous year that we're now starting to see some economic assistance payment for. On top of that, crop cash receipts are falling. Corn, soybeans, wheat, all of our row crops are really seeing lower cash receipts. Livestock is on the brighter end of the spectrum. They're seeing an increase in cash receipts. So we can't really just look at that number and say, wow, we're having a great year. Really, there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all report. It sounds like, depending on what you raise or what you grow, the increase may not be hitting your bank account at all.
Yeah, that's right. So even though nationally we're seeing numbers that show improvement, individual farms are still facing really tight and negative margins. We're seeing a record increase in production expenses, things like fertilizer, labor, interest expenses. They're all really eating into that net farm income, and most producers are operating at a loss. Our net production expenses are forecasted to be up $467 billion this year, which is the highest we've ever seen. And so just because we see higher net income on paper, our farmers and producers really aren't seeing that.
So as you know, in Iowa, we grow a lot of corn and a lot of soybeans. So how does what we're expecting to be a pretty big crop this year, how does that impact prices?
Yeah, so, the United States is seeing a great year. We're having lots of production and had the really pretty good weather across the board. And the rest of the world is seeing that too. So we're really having a large U.S. harvest as well as, a large world supply of all these commodities. And that's going to put some downward pressure on prices. And so, for corn and soybeans, we're really going to see a big crop here enter a world market that also has a pretty large crop out there. And so that's, again, just going to keep that downward pressure on prices. And so even though we had a great production year, that doesn't always translate to, record income.
What about the cost of crop inputs? I'm thinking fertilizer, herbicide. How are those things affecting the overall farm income picture?
Yeah, so our input cost is record high, and fertilizer is really becoming one of those that we're all keeping an eye on. Fertilizer prices are not back to the peak of 2022 prices, but we do see some rising, and we also see a lot of volatility in that market space, especially in potash. Potash, has some different trade barriers. They have some different tariffs on importing potash, and we import most of our potash. On top of that, we have shifting trade policies, different global geopolitical disruptions. And so that's really just going to continue making those input costs more volatile and squeeze producers' margins.
Yeah, you mentioned imports. So I would imagine kind of the geopolitics of all of it. One of the things we've heard is that China has just stopped buying soybeans for next marketing year from the U.S. How do these pressures impact those prices?
Yeah, so we're all, actors on this global market. And so when China decides to buy soybeans from somewhere else, we need to find a market for our products. And so that's going to keep a downward pressure and lower prices until we find markets for these goods to go to. Brazil, again, has had a good year, and so they can sell these soybeans to China. And now we really need to decide where we're going to send our beans and what markets we can look into.
Are we seeing any glimmers of hope or activity kind of in the renewable fuels space?
Yeah, the renewable fuel space is definitely somewhere we're seeing a little glimmer of hope. The EPA has announced their new renewable fuel standards for the coming years and is looking at making some changes with small refinery exemptions, as well as just being very pro biofuels. And so that will be really great for soybeans as we start looking for new markets. And especially if an administration wants to be energy independent, United States soybeans and corn can really help in that renewable fuel space, either through biofuels, renewable fuels, sustainable aviation fuel, any of those.
Well, that's good. I'm glad we got something working for us. I know there's also some less tangible pressures, more like paper issues like interest rates, inflation on products and inputs. So how is that weighing on the farm's bottom line?
Yeah, interest and inflation are putting pressure on everyone, not just farmers, but it's really hurting farmers especially because they already had such thin margins. So interest costs have been way up over the years. Operating loans and mortgages are far more expensive today than they were even just a few years ago. On top of that, we're seeing inflation across the board. So we talked already about how fertilizer was very volatile, but we also see fuel, equipment, labor, land rent, property, all of those inputs are, rising in price throughout the years. And so even though we're seeing, a higher gross cash income or net farm income, in reality, we're really still seeing a lot of pressure, especially for our farmers.
Have Farm Bill and economic relief programs from USDA made a difference on the overall income picture?
Yeah, so as we mentioned earlier, right, a large portion of our net farm income forecast is from government assistance. And so we know those programs are working and helping. Safety net programs like ARC and PLC and crop insurance can really help producers mitigate risk. On top of that, in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, Congress really, reinvested in the farm safety net and made a bunch of changes that are going to help producers in the long run. However, those investments really aren't going to be seen until the next marketing year. And so we'll have to, keep making sure we're looking for markets, keep negotiating for better markets here in the United States for the current time.
What is the outlook for prices this winter and even into next spring? Are there opportunities for maybe better prices? Are we going to be kind of the same place we are now?
I think we'll probably be around the same place we are now. Holding all things constant, if we don't see some major trade announcements or market announcements, we'll probably see, downward pressure on price continue. We have large supplies in the United States, large supplies around the world, and some pretty stiff export competition out there. So we'll probably be right where we are right now.
So given that, what strategies should farmers be put in place right now to help them have a successful 2026?
Yeah, as we start to look into the next marketing year, making sure that producers are looking at different risk management tools that are available to them on crop insurance, contracting, anything to, kind of help mitigate risk. On top of that, just continue to control cost with interest rates and inflation and volatility in our input market. And that's going to be something very helpful.
Who should farmers be leaning on right now? I would imagine as they're looking for good advice, they would be wanting to talk to their bankers, their lenders, just members of their local team, wouldn't they?
Yeah, you're exactly right. They should definitely be leaning on people in their local team, their lenders, their accountants, if there's extension agents, agronomists, anyone around them that can help provide, relevant advice for their area, their commodity. Those are definitely people they should lean on.
Thanks, Faith. Faith and her colleagues at American Farm Bureau do a great job of tracking changes in the farm economy. You can follow their work by subscribing to American Farm Bureau's Market Intel Updates. We've provided a link to that Market Intel site down in the notes for this podcast episode. We've also provided a link to Iowa Farm Bureau's Cash Bid Search Tool, a platform that allows Iowa Farm Bureau members to easily search for the best prices offered at grain facilities near them. We know that crop farmers are looking for every advantage they can find right now, so we just wanted to remind you that the Cash Bid Search Tool is available to help Farm Bureau members find their best local options. As farmers face today's economic challenges, it's becoming even more crucial to have a network of farmer peers to lean on and gain insights from. And one of those networking opportunities is Iowa Farm Bureau's Young Farmer Conference, which is an annual 2-day event in January attended by more than 500 young farmers and ag professionals from across the state. The group that organizes the Young Farmer Conference is Iowa Farm Bureau's Young Farmer Advisory Committee, and this summer, that advisory committee elected a new chair to lead their group, Michael McEnany of Story County. Spokesman editor Tom Block had a chance to visit Michael's farm earlier this month.
Michael, thanks for joining us here for the podcast. For starters, let's just talk a little bit about your background. Tell me about your farm and your family and everything you have going on up here in Story County.
I work full-time for a neighboring farmer at Flynn Family Farms. My wife, Ashley, she works full-time at Iowa State, and then she waitresses at What You Smoking at Luther. We had a recent addition within the last month. Our son, Miles Allen McEnany, was born on August 14th. So just getting used to the transition with that and everything. As far as our farming operation, we are raised locker beef and sell direct to the consumer. Our cow-calf herd consists mainly of Angus background cattle, purebred and crossbred.
And that was a transition that you've made just several years ago now, but during COVID, how did that direct to consumers start?
We sold some before COVID, but we didn't really ramp up our numbers on production till COVID came around. It gave us another outlet besides just taking the cattle directly to the sale barn. And I mean, obviously right now, cattle markets are really good, but that's not always the case. So that gave us a outlet to expand our operation then. The plan has always been to try to grow the herd. Right now, we're basically just maintaining numbers, trying to stick right around that 25 cow-calf pair amount. We did some preg checking already and had some opens, so we had to take some to town. We'd like to add some replacement heifers back in, but given the cost of replacement heifers, it might have to wait a year or two. Sure. But we're looking to maintain right around that 25 cow-calf pair right now.
And working for the neighboring farmer, is that a row crop operation or?
It's mainly row crop. They also have a cattle herd as well. They're running right around 25 to 30 pairs.
Let's talk a little more about your background. Did you grow up around farming, or when did you know that you wanted to be a farmer and raise cattle?
Both of my grandfathers were farmers. That's probably what really sparked it all for me. My dad was a high school ag teacher for 9 years, and then he was a community college ag teacher for 31. So family-wise, always been some sort of tie to ag. High school time frame-wise, I was very active in FFA and 4-H, as well as I worked for local neighboring farmers, and I raised hogs and cattle through high school. So then after high school, I attended Des Moines Area Community College in agribusiness for 2 years, and then after that, I transferred into Iowa State for ag studies for 2 years. So I had an ag background for my degree, I guess, and been pretty much always stayed in Story County, been working for farmers in the area ever since, and it's allowed me to have my own operation on the side as well with the cattle herd.
As you mentioned, you and Ashley recently had your first child, and she works full-time, plus your Farm Bureau involvement, so you guys have a lot going on. You said you're still figuring things out, but how do you keep everything balanced and keep everything on track and juggle all these balls as a young farmer?
We're still trying to figure out the right balance for all that. Right now we're just doing what we can and just kind of rolling with everything, and with the baby and everything else going on with harvest coming on right now, and being on the Young Farmer Advisory Committee, and I'm still active on the County Farm Bureau Board, and we're both board members on the County Cattlemen's as well.
You're in your third year on the Young Farmer Committee. Were elected chair of the committee a couple of months ago. How did your involvement in Farm Bureau begin?
My involvement in Farm Bureau began back in 2007. I was a senior in high school, and we helped plant the Ag in the Classroom plots at Colo, Nesco, and then down at Collins Maxwell. So did that spring, and then ended up helping with the breakfast at the county fair in the summertime, and then next thing you know, in the fall, they had an open board position, and then I got asked to be on some committees and joined the board, and been on it ever since. In my time on the board, I've held the offices of secretary, vice president, president, and voting delegate. I actually just finished up my voting delegate term in December of this last year. And having been active with Farm Bureau over the years has broadened my horizons within the ag industry and everything, and it has created the opportunity for me to be on the Young Farmer Advisory Committee.
Yeah, what would you say to other young farmers out there? Everybody's busy and don't think they have time for things, but what would you say to people why you think it's important for young farmers to be involved in an organization like Farm Bureau?
The amount of people I've met over the years through Farm Bureau and so many things that Farm Bureau does, whether it's your local level, being involved on the board, clear up to obviously Young Farmer Advisory Committee. I think it's important to be involved with an organization like Farm Bureau simply because without that involvement, you can sit back and you can, I want to see this done or I want to see this done, but if you don't take action on it, nothing ever gets done. So I guess for me personally, it was just taking the time to get involved and then make those connections with the networking. I mean, that's probably been one of the most rewarding things for me in, my time being active with Farm Bureau, making sure I make those connections that also encourage other younger farmers to get involved as well.
Drawing from your own experiences, as well as those from your friends and peers and that young farmer network that you talk to, what are some of the biggest challenges you see facing young farmers today?
I would have to say some of the biggest challenges that I see facing young farmers, mainly right now, just the cost of getting into agriculture. I mean, whether livestock or row crop production, just the amount of capital and inputs needed. I mean, for me personally, okay, for the amount of cows we run, if I was going to start, a cow herd, I probably would not go out tomorrow and be buying a bunch of cows to start a herd or anything. It's just with the expense of everything right now, it makes it very deterring. Land is a big issue, and I just foresee that one continuing to be a big issue, cash rents, just purchase price initially, everything.
Mm-hmm. So what are some solutions or ideas you have to overcome those challenges, or some things that you've personally done that you'd like to share with others?
I don't really have a crystal ball or anything to, offer guidance at what's going to come. I mean, one big thing I would say is if opportunities present themselves, do what you can, take advantage of those opportunities. There's, maybe there's a reason that opportunity has presented itself. You don't want to get yourself in a spot where woulda, coulda, shoulda or anything, obviously, but don't be afraid to take some of those chances and those opportunities as they arise. It's never going to be easy, but if you worried about that all the time, you wouldn't make any headway on anything either.
Let's talk a little bit about what gets you excited about the future in farming for young people. Obviously, there's challenges that we've talked about, a lot of risk involved, but there's a reason that yourself gravitates to this, your network of friends gravitate towards this. So what gets you excited and what opportunities are out there for people who want to be involved in agriculture?
Some of the things I guess that get me excited, it's been really neat to see how, just even in my time working for a farmer over the years, so I've been doing this since I was probably 14 years old, and the amount of technology and just the vastness and the changes and everything. It's been just in the span of my lifetime has been interesting to see how some of that has all come to play, or just changes and everything, because you look back 40, 50, 75 years, how things have progressed and come along. That's one thing I always find interesting.
Do you think that surprises people outside of agriculture too? People still see farming as old-fashioned? They don't realize maybe all the technology that does go into it?
I think people realize it to a point, but I do feel there is some reservation there that maybe people don't understand what it all takes anymore just to have a efficient functioning operation and being able to utilize all those tools in your toolbox with the new stuff these days.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about the Young Farmer Committee. Like I said, you were elected chair of the committee. You and Ashley have been on it for 3 years now. So what are some of your personal goals for the Young Farmer program and the activities here coming up in the next year?
We do such a wonderful job, the committee as a whole, with how we plan everything out for the course of the year. Obviously, goal-wise, myself as a third year on the committee, you want to see the second and the first years, and whoever comes on, after we're leaving, continue to grow the Young Farmer program, essentially. I mean, when I first started attending the Young Farmer stuff, we did not have near the amount of participants that we do now. It's just been really amazing to see how that program has grown over the years. And then, you know, the fact that I've participated in it for so long, you know, we were talking about this summer when the committee met, and I think I had figured I'd been doing this 18 years already, attending some of that stuff. And,
right? Yeah. The strength of the committee and the Young Farmer program as a whole, a lot of folks tell us that networking aspect, especially after they leave high school, graduate college, this really gives them a connection of like-minded people. You find that to be the case?
You definitely meet and work with a lot of people, whether being on the committee or just participating in the conference or attending Young Farmer events and stuff. You definitely do meet a lot of like-minded people, but the nice part is everyone's got their, I would say, own opinion. Everyone's operation's different, so it's nice being able to draw from some of the vast experiences, you know, across the state and everything that attendees or young producers have.
Different ways of approaching something.
What works here for us may not work 2 counties over, but
for sure. What's the committee working on right now? What are some of the major events coming up that the committee will be planning for and hosting?
We actually just hosted 2 recently. So we had the Young Farmer Day at the State Fair. So the committee works the Farm Bureau booth, and you get to talk to people as they come through the booth and, you know, tell them why, you know, they should get involved in everything. And then we also hosted our annual Young Farmer Tailgate. That was August 30th for the ISU versus South Dakota game. So those are 2 we just wrapped up. As far as upcoming dates, we have annual meeting in December 9th and 10th, and the evening of the 9th, we present the Young Farmer Awards, and we usually do a Young Farmer social gathering afterwards. And then coming up in January is our Young Farmer Conference. So that is the 23rd and 24th. We have tours lined up for Friday afternoon, and then we have various sessions that you can attend on Saturday, as well as we got keynote speaker Friday night, Saturday night.
As you said, that Young Conference continues to grow and get bigger every year. I think 500 plus people attend that now. So if people want more information about that, certainly they can go to our website, but also they could reach out to the district representatives.
Yeah, reach out to your district representatives. You know, there's 9 districts, so just make sure you're reaching out to your representative on the Young Farmer Advisory Committee. And if you don't know who that is, talk to your county board and they can get you in contact with us. And, you know, if you got any questions, we'd love to hear from you.
Thanks, Michael. We know everyone's going to be pretty busy in the fields for the next couple of months, but those winter meetings will be here before we know it. I'll echo the plug Michael gave for Iowa Farm Bureau's upcoming annual meeting, which is December 9th and 10th, and the 2026 Young Farmer Conference, which will be January 23rd and 24th. Both of those events will be at the Community Choice Credit Union Convention Center in downtown Des Moines. Registration for the annual meeting opens in mid-October. Registration for the Young Farmer Conference begins December 1st, and you can sign up for both events by contacting your County Farm Bureau office. That's all for this edition of the Spokesman Speaks podcast. We hope you picked up some helpful information and that you'll join us for our next episode on October 13th. Thank you for doing the work that inspires everything we do here at the Iowa Farm Bureau, and thanks for listening to the Spokesman Speaks.
Thank you for listening to the Spokesman Speaks, a podcast by Iowa Farm Bureau. Check out more podcast episodes at iowafarmbureau.com/podcast. You can also find and subscribe to the Spokesman Speaks podcast in the Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other popular podcast apps. We appreciate your ratings and reviews, and we welcome you to email us your feedback at podcast@ifbf.org.